Every successful organization begins with its people. At Incredible Workplaces, we help you build workplaces that inspire, engage, and endure. Recognition starts with certification. Our globally benchmarked evaluation celebrates organizations that foster engagement, inclusivity, and innovation. Certification is more than a badge. It's proof that your culture empowers people to excel. Through consulting, we partner with organizations to transform cultures, strengthen leadership, and build workplaces that adapt, innovate, and thrive. Your story deserves to be heard. With our employer branding solutions, we showcase your culture through featured videos, exclusive events, and media spotlights, ensuring you attract and retain top talent with pride. From recognition to transformation and employer branding, our services create workplaces that inspire people and elevate businesses. Are you ready to transform your workplace into a beacon of excellence? Partner with Incredible Workplaces today.
Thanks a lot, Incredible Workplace, for this recognition. Thank you.
Proud to be Incredible Workplaces.
I'm proud to share that MB Informatics has been certified as an Incredible Workplace.
Feeling proud to be recognized as Incredible Workplace certified.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Culture Connect by Incredible Workplaces, a show where we invite global leaders from all over the world talking about different aspects of culture and the elements that actually impact culture itself. Today, we have with us Theresa, who is the CHRO of MDBI, and she's based out of US. So first of all, welcome, Theresa, to the show.
Thanks, Govind. It's good to be here.
All right. And our today's conversation is going to be unique in the way that we have in the past, Theresa spoke about multiple aspects of culture, like what defines culture, what are the various elements that people need to keep in mind. But I don't remember that we spoke about why culture defines organization's success as a topic in itself. So first of all, we are very excited to have this conversation with you. And to my audience, please feel free to put your comments, your questions to Theresa. In next 45 minutes, I'll try to take as many as I can. No promises there, because all the time we're never able to take the full list of questions that comes to us. But I'll try my level best. But before we go into that, Theresa, would you mind talking about your journey, professional journey, and share it with our audience so that they will be able to connect more with you?
Yes, for sure. Well, it's fun to be with you, Govind, because when we worked together, we met at this time every week. And so it's fun to be on the other end of a line with you again from our time at Three Pillar. So good morning, good evening, everyone. I am Theresa Graff. I have had a kind of winding career in HR, moving from HR into operations, back into HR, back into operations, and then most recently as the CHRO of MDBIP. I started my career in the nonprofit world. And so I spent a lot of time in a global nonprofit, working to help strengthen public justice systems so that they work for the poor. I moved from there to consulting, which was about learning a lot of different companies and seeing what works in great companies around the United States. And then from there, I moved to Hilton, which is the #1 great place to work in the US, and a company that highly prides itself on culture. And from there, I went to Three Pillar, which is where Govind and I had the opportunity to work together, and most recently moved to MDBIP as the CHRO.
Well, that's awesome. First of all, thank you very much. And I'm equally excited to be on this call with you and sharing the learnings that you have. And I think from the perspective of, to our viewer, from the perspective of a global understanding of a global culture, I think you are one of the most suitable candidates for that, because you have been working with the teams that are based globally, and you have the exposure to not only the organization culture, but also the culture of the countries which are very different from each other. We're going to talk about that for a while for sure. But as I said, I'm truly excited about the topic that we're going to have conversation about, like culture defining the organization success. But let me start from one of the quote that I think all of us has heard a lot says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." So I'll start from there, Teresa. And my question to you, and I normally ask this question to a lot of people, is how do you define organization culture? And one of the reasons why this is important question is that I've seen I get very diverse opinion from leaders. But I'll ask you two questions together. One is what defines as per you an organization culture, and how it is important to the business success.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure I believe that culture eats strategy for breakfast, but it certainly is a pair to strategy for breakfast. You can't have one without the other. When I think about culture, the way that I most clearly see this playing out is when you're in the bathroom, standing next to a colleague at the mirror and having a conversation about your life, or when you're in the elevator talking to a colleague and you see how they treat their other colleagues. Culture is not about just what happens in the boardroom. It's truly about those everyday interactions and decisions, and the way that those little interactions are the woven fabric of the organization and who the organization really is. So when I think about like a personality of a person, like I have a personality, I've got certain traits. I'm introverted or I'm extroverted. I am somebody who loves a party, loves reading, loves different things. That's what makes me who I am. In a company culture, it's that shared understanding of who we are.
Awesome. I think it's a very I'm not sure why I'm getting echo, but it's a very different perspective that I hear. I think for most of the audience that we have, where we always believe that culture eats strategy for the breakfast, but I think it's something that both of that can go together in parallel. They supplement each other as opposed to kind of being a rival. Now, I think I spoke about a little bit on the part that you've been working with global organizations, and one of the aspects that I have always seen is that when an organization is trying to build culture in in the offices that they have in different part of the world, one of the thing it comes out to be a clashes between the culture that you want to build and the culture that particular country has, right? And I've seen it in many organizations and like most of the organizations who have that are basically based out of US, right? Global organizations, and the top leadership always there in the US itself. And when they are dealing with multi-country offices, they kind of get a culture shock, I would say, because they have their own style of doing thing, and suddenly they find, oh well, in this country that doesn't work that way. So let me ask you, how was your experience, and do you believe that a global organization, a company can have a same culture in all the organizations? And any example that you want to share where you kind of got the same kind of shock, and how did you sail through that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, I don't think that having a strong culture as an organization doesn't mean that you create a team of robots. It doesn't mean that everything and everyone is going to be exactly the same. And so I do think that in working in global organizations, that's one of the most important things to note is there have to be norms and rhythms and things that we say we do together and that make us as a company. But that doesn't mean that Govind, all of a sudden you're going to be having, your coffee for breakfast instead of your chai. We're different in some of the, I love a good cup of chai too. But
Yeah, I actually recall a story. Chai is always on the top of your.
So I'm going to detour for a second. So I went to our India office and I was spending time with our team there, and I love chai. Like I could drink tea every day of the week, but only in India because you cannot get the same taste of chai because of the milk anywhere else in the world that I've had. So anyway, I asked for my cup of chai. I got my chai. I'm sitting there. Somebody comes back. They notice my cup is empty. So they ask, you want some more? I don't know. How many cups did I have, Govind? Like 12 cups of chai throughout the day. Anyway, it became a story in the office. Like, who is this person? Teresa's
I
just
do drink a lot of tea, by the way, myself.
so good. Yes.
I'm a tea lover.
Yes. But all that to say that what I choose to drink in the morning doesn't define the company culture. And it's really critical that you figure out in a global company, what are the norms and rhythms and ways of operating that we are going to make consistent no matter what. And then how you bring that to life through the events that you hold, through the rhythms, through the behaviors, through the benefits that you provide. All of that is just a reinforcement of the corporate culture. But it doesn't have to be exactly the same. And I can share a couple examples of that if it's helpful.
Sure.
Yeah. So when I think about when we were working in a global tech company, we had grown through acquisition. So there were a lot of different companies that were coming together under one roof. And they each had totally different sets of benefits, totally different norms and rhythms in the office. And we had the responsibility, you and I, alongside a couple of other leaders, to start to meld into one consistent culture across the globe. And so when we were thinking about that, we were thinking about our values, first of all. How do we live our values? How do we make sure that we are all operating under these same values? And I think you and I benefited from a CEO and an executive leadership team that really valued the culture in the decision to acquire companies, which is not a given, as I've learned. And so that was the first piece, is there was already this strong agreement across these companies that we have evaluated you for fit with our culture, and you will be moving into our culture. However, we are also going to build into our culture the different norms and rhythms that make up your culture. So when I think about, for example, our Czechia office, beautiful team, very different culture than India, I would say, very different culture than the US. And at the same time, this mission-driven focus on customers, desire to deliver excellence that made up who we were as a company. They valued the dignity of others, which was one of our values, intrinsic dignity. And so when you think about that team, the way that they lived that was very different. In India, when we look at our holiday party and you think about this massive celebration, everybody coming in from all over the country, a major feast. And then you think about Czechia in a much smaller context, 3 offices an hour apart from each other, because Czechians don't travel. Like, they're not going to travel an hour to their workplace. And so 3 different offices, and 3 different offices with different norms, because Czechia is very hyper-local in the way that they operate. But if you go to the Czechia office and you spend time with any of those teams, and they had a breakfast once a week that the leadership prepared for their teams, that was a norm that nobody else had around the world. But it was the same culture. Same culture because you had the same leaders serving their teams. You had the same ability to see people and desire the best for people. And you had the same culture of mission excellence that was driving their customer engagement.
Yeah, and thank you very much for taking me to the flashbacks. It's really, really it could be a 4 or 50 minutes.
It could, just reminiscing of our life. Yeah.
But thank you very much. I think we all can still appreciate the culture of different countries and make sure that we are still aligned with the organization culture is the message I think you are giving here to all the audience, that we don't have to be just like stubborn to one thing that we have to do, but like really appreciate what other countries has to offer as a culture, and align them with the organization culture. And the second big element that you have added is that it's always important, especially in the occasions where you are trying to infuse organizations which are in different countries with the main one, which is basically an acquisition that we are doing. I think the support of the leadership is one of the key elements that you always look forward for. Uh, and you spoke about robots, and we have a question or not on the robots, but but on something that I always get these questions, and I'm sure you understand where it is going. No conversation so far I've seen without conversation on artificial intelligence.
100. Yeah.
So, so we have a question from Bharat. He's from Hyderabad, and his question is to you, Teresa, that as AI and automation redefines the work place, it's not happening like completely, but that's what we hope it's gonna be happening very soon. How can organization preserve human-centered culture and continue to drive trust, collaboration, success? In your opinion, what do you think? And by the way, with that question, would you like to add, do you see this AI coming up, like, because you are from the place where every change that happens in the world happens there first. So
We do love our change, don't we? We love diving head first.
So would you like to share, are you seeing that? Because the whole world sees that and talk about it. Do you see that? Do you see that is happening in MDBI, right? VIP right now? Or do you see that is happening in other companies where your colleagues are? Do you guys discuss about that? Are you concerned about it? And then maybe diving into the question, what Bharat is asking, if that is going to happen, how do you create a human-centered culture?
Yes, for sure. I think you have to do it intentionally. It's such a good question, but really I see AI coming up in two distinct areas. The first of which is, how do you empower and strengthen human interactions by removing busy work? And particularly as an HR leader, I see this. Like, I don't need to draft a policy from scratch. I can type into ChatGPT a policy, and most policies are 95% the same across companies. So I don't need to spend an hour drafting a policy. I can spend 10 minutes drafting a policy that I have used ChatGPT to spit out to me a first draft of. Another way that I see AI or agentic AI coming into place is in particularly service. There is a way to do AI wrong. So we've all been on the phone with a service organization that it's like, press 1 to go to so-and-so, press 2, you press 2, you go to another operator and it's press 1, press 2, press 3, you press 3, it takes you to another operator. And eventually you've talked to 7 robots before you're ever connected with a human. So there's definitely a way to do it wrong. But at the same time, particularly in HR or in customer service, I see a lot of opportunity to remove the questions that can easily be answered by agentic AI. So in HR, if you think about the number of questions that come into an HR inbox, how do I access my benefits? Hey, I can't figure out what to do. I'm going on leave. Most of those questions, I believe in a year or two, even less for some very strong organizations, will be answered by agentic AI. There's no reason why they shouldn't be. Where you want the human interaction is, you have a performance issue. You have an escalated issue with your manager and you need to be able to talk with somebody about how to solve it. All of those things are very human-centered. And that's where, in my opinion, AI can augment or support or be a coach even. Sometimes a CHRO, they say, is like one of the most lonely jobs. I'll get on ChatGPT and be like, hey, I'm thinking about this program and trying to decide how to do this. Or I was dealing with a team member that was really upset about X. Can you coach me on thinking through this a different way? AI is great for those kind of conversations as kind of a partner or a sidekick or an assistant. And so I would say that is one place where we should all be leaning in to AI. The second piece of AI, which is very painful and still changing rapidly, is how AI is going to replace jobs. And that clearly comes into conflict with human-centered design. And at the same time, I think there is a way for us to engage the reality that if a job can be done cheaper, faster, and in an automated fashion, that is where it's going to go. And so with that, I was at a economic forum 2 weeks ago where economist was talking about how AI is replacing jobs or not. And the reality is most jobs are actually not being replaced. Like when you see most individuals or careers, and this is me showing like a chart that was there, you can't see it, but it's clear in my head, that most jobs are staying the same or increasing in value or prevalence in the organization. Where we're seeing the decline is in entry-level professionals. And that is because a lot of those roles are better done by AI. And so the opportunity, and this is what I would challenge everyone here who cares about people, who cares about incredible workplaces, who wants to shape the future of the workplace. From my perspective, the opportunity is not to hang tight and say like, no, keep hiring entry-level professionals. It is to figure out how do we use AI, experiential learning, higher education, how do we use those things to elevate new professionals so that they bypass the work that AI can do for them?
Yeah, and so well said. I wanted to ask you the question. I think you have already answered, and I'm sure many of our audience wanted to know that. One thing that comes to everybody's mind is that are our jobs in danger because of artificial intelligence? And I think you covered it, and also what people should do if they. I don't know whether we kind of touched it more, but let me ask you if you want to double down on that. What can people do? Right? Still, there is a fear among people that that jobs will go, and honestly, I've seen jobs going, but I think you're right. I've seen those jobs; those are more operations and repeated are going at this point in time. But in your opinion, what can people do to cope up with this fear, or maybe to use AI as their friend as opposed to enemy?
Yeah, I would say there's two things. One is embracing AI. It's here, it's not going away. And the more that you can start using Claude, Beautiful AI, ChatGPT, these tools, when I was in my last role, when I was working with you, I think was, right around that time, I had committed to using AI for 10 minutes a day. And it opened my eyes so quickly to the fact that I could accomplish an hour's worth of work in that 10 minutes. And eventually I could solve 2 hours of work in that 10 minutes. And that's about where it landed, is like recognizing there's certain pieces of work that I can quickly and easily, if I learn how to prompt, if I learn how to talk to AI, if I learn how to use different tools for different things, that you start to see the benefits of AI. So that would be the first thing. I would not shy away from using AI. And it's painful. It's a different way of communicating. It's a different way of operating, but do it. There's no other way to become accustomed to it than to use it. And then the second piece that I would say is thinking through one, I guess, I'm a big proponent of change and change readiness and change acceptance. The world is changing rapidly. It is. And it has been more and more quickly over the last 50 years. And while I think that we're going to have some fits and starts with AI, there are going to be some things that we say it's not going to work, it's not going to do anything. We said the same thing about the internet. We said, like, people said, like, this is just going to be a fad. When are you going to go get a real job? The reality is this is here to stay. And so the most important question is, are you going to change with it? And once you've answered that question, and once you start to understand AI, then it's figuring out, like, what is the future of the workplace? Because I live in Washington, D.C. right now. We've had a huge upset or disruption in our city because we've had a federal government shutdown. We have the reduction in government employees. And what I see as somebody local is a lot of employees who built their whole future around a mission or an identity that was based on a job. You can't do that anymore. Those jobs, like the highly niche, like expert on Chinese immigration, like that role is not coming back. And so similarly, all of us, we didn't have that disruption moment that we had here, but we all need to disrupt ourselves and accept that we are going to have to make some decisions in our careers in order to grow into the future.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that people can do is to, I think you correctly said when internet came, and I will go back when I think I'm older, when even the computer came, right? Forget about internet. That point in time, also people were equally scared, and people were saying that the jobs will go. I see more jobs coming because of technology coming in play. Same when the internet happened, more jobs coming up. There's so many opportunities nowadays, and now with this AI, there could be more jobs. I don't know which are those, but I am hoping that more jobs will come, right? So there are different kind of roles that might come in the future that are not existence today. There will be roles that that are existing today might go very soon, but I don't think people need to worry about that. But I think what they need to do, they don't have to be just sit down and say, okay, nothing will happen. I think they need to do something, and I think what you said is correct. That at least start learning AI and start using it in what you do day to day. And Teresa, as an entrepreneur, I am working with my team. I have a small team of people, and I'm saying that, hey, rather than we adding more people to our team, how can we make best out of the time that you have, and at least leverage and find tasks that you are doing today and can be done by any AI platform that we can just buy and just use it, and as opposed to you spending like 2 hours, just spend 20 minutes and get your things done. Now, this will give to my team, and I think the same way when I speak to a lot of other business owners that I'm interacting with, they all are thinking in those lines. Now, well, Teresa, they're not talking about like big AI projects that we have to do.
No. Yeah.
Right. What they're talking about is how we can leverage this AI in the basics of the business, so that we just get rid of those repeated tasks.
Yep.
And I love that the message that you give to everybody, that use 10 minutes a day. Well, my team don't listen to Teresa, just give 20 minutes.
Always one-upping me, Govind. Always just taking it to that next level.
Yeah, but I think even if you're spending whatever time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day, it actually start changing the way you start looking at technology as something that's going to stop you to something that will enable you to do more, right? I think the only problem, Teresa, I face today is that so many AI tools do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to kind of figure out which one you want to use. But I think that's what the fun is all about, right? You try one tool, then you go to the next tool and say, this one is best for me. And then you take that tool and work on it. So that's what I would say.
One thing I'll say, though, is that the tools are shifting so quickly. It's also hard to even say, this is the tool and I'm going to stick with it, because we're all still in this transformation phase of growth. If I were to say, and I see Bharati has said a few things about, I was looking in the chat, I can't remember where it is, but how do you approach it with a human approach? Oh, Gartner, he quotes this: 71% of CHROs say AI will fundamentally reshape HR, yet less than 20% have a defined ethics and culture framework. And I think that's a really good point. One of the pieces, this isn't so much an ethics framework, but one of the key principles that I've applied to our team is we are going to build a foundation. So our data platform, which is the platform on which all AI is able to do what you need it to do, the platform of our data is going to be clean. We are going to focus on our data platform and making sure that all of our data is in a format and a way that if and when we need to utilize it, and if and when there is a tool that makes the most sense, we're able to access our data accurately. That's number one. Number two is we are erring on the side of fewer tools rather than more, and saying, is there one tool that we can get maximum impact from? And ironically, right now for us, we're in kind of foundation building mode here, but most of the tools that we're utilizing, it's our HRIS system and making sure that we have the best practices in place. And it's Zapier, which is allowing us to automate certain workflows. But beyond that, I'm actually consolidating down tools because I think that it gets so noisy so quick that we want our data to be available when we need it, when we find a tool that's going to be exponential in providing support to our team.
Yeah, I think you made a very key point. One thing I also wanted to tell, and I want to sound off to our audience is that I think that one of the problem with this AI revolution that is happening right now is that the change is so fast that it does not give us time to cop up with what we have done. But this is a very different kind of thing that we have seen in the past. I myself say I think it's a fun because you just learn one and then you realize, oh, you have a better one than this one that you have to use. And this reminds me, Theresa, long back when the AI conversation happening, I was explaining with some of the tools, and I found an app that actually converts your it takes your face, and I'm sure you're aware of it, or maybe similar kind of tool. Takes your face and then convert it to many portraits that you want to use for LinkedIn, different posts, etc., etc. And I was super excited. But I used it. I paid for it too. I used it, and then when I actually used it on multiple platforms, the people were like, "Well, we can tell this is AI. We can definitely tell it's not your own picture." Well, I wanted to tell people it's not AI, but they kind of got because maybe the AI was in that particular area. AI was very new, but they could do that with whatever they have, the algorithm and programming they did. But then I lost my whole. Well, AI is not good. People don't perceive it in the nicer way. And then a couple of months back, I saw another tool, similar tool that does the same work. Fantastic. And they improved so much from the previous one, right? So AI itself is doing stuff and trying to be more and more realistic. And so I think that's one example of how things changing. You can't stick to one tool right now. But at the end of the day, I think it produces, it saves a lot of your time and produces things that you want to produce. So I think the message is that start learning AI, see what makes sense for you. So this is about AI automation, and I'm taking you back a little bit on the soft skills side of it.
Yes.
Theresa, I just want your mind to juggle completely from.
Perfect. Keep me on my
no systematic questions. Throw it from wherever you get. All right. So I love this question. I have so many questions, audience. Thank you very much for overwhelming questions. As I said in the beginning, I think I can't keep my promise. I will not be able to take all the questions, but I'll try to take most of them. So Manan's question is, what role does communication play in building and maintaining a healthy work culture?
Yes.
And if any example that you want to share, Theresa, where the communication has screwed the whole culture, or any conversation that you wanted to go in a certain way, feel free to share that as well.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think where I would start is maybe going back to that definition of culture and thinking about culture as the rhythms and norms that happen when nobody's looking, the rhythms and norms that kind of define who you are. And I'll use two examples. One, maybe some of you have heard of the Ritz-Carlton. It's a hotel chain known for elegance and for exceptional service. Well, the Ritz-Carlton, in order to live out their culture and to say that we are going to, I forget what the term is, but essentially wow every customer that walks in our door, every guest, they established a $2,000 rule. A $2,000 rule. The $2,000 rule was that if you are employed by Ritz-Carlton and you have a guest who has a problem, a situation, an opportunity, a celebration, and you need to wow that guest, you have $2,000 at your disposal to make the right decision for that customer or guest. Wow. $2,000. Wow. Now that's one example. I'll use another. Nordstrom, it's a big department store here in the US, known again for top brands, for luxury. Likewise, they set a in their culture, they wanted to say that we will do everything for our customers. This is a partnership between us. And so what they did is they said, if you are a clerk, a salesperson at Nordstrom, and somebody comes in to return something, you can return it, no questions asked. The story goes that somebody came in one time with a tire, a used tire. They don't sell tires at Nordstrom. And the clerk very pleasantly took the tire, said, "Thank you, Mr. Nagy. Let me take your tire, and here's the equivalent dollars back on your purchase." And again, what that says about the culture. So Ritz-Carlton, they care about the guest experience, but they want every single worker in their hotel chain to know that this is something we value so much that you have the judgment call on how to reinforce this value. At Nordstrom, similarly, you have the judgment call, front desk salesperson, to be able to manage any return that somebody has, no questions asked. And so when I think about communication is meant to be a tool that reinforces the culture. It reinforces the culture. So I would start there by saying, when you think about culture, or when you think about communication, think about, how is my communication reinforcing what I'm saying is true about this company, about our culture? So that would be the first thing that I would say about communication. And then what have I seen work? One example, when we were working together, Govind, was we had a global HR team. And our global HR team had come from many different companies, as I mentioned earlier, all of which had been kind of acquired or had been there for some time. And we were in the process of saying that we wanted to be a high-performing organization. We were a high-performing organization, but we wanted our HR team to be focused on business outcomes. Focused on business outcomes as opposed to focused on HR for HR's sake. And so what we did is we set a weekly rhythm, you might remember, where we were looking at the metrics that mattered to the business. So attrition mattered to the business because we were a consulting firm. And so any person lost was dollars lost in the business and impacted our clients directly. And so we had this dashboard that each week our rhythm was to look at the metrics that mattered to the business and to talk about those metrics rather than to talk about our own metrics or any other slew of things that we could talk about. And then the other piece related to that was also using the conversation to shift our thinking so that we became more business-centric and talked like the business. And so you might remember we talked about qualitative and quantitative data points to reinforce our assumptions. And so you might say, Govind, you might come to a meeting and say, like, India attrition, it's not up yet, but it's coming, we're going to have a problem. And we would look then at the qualitative and the quantitative data points to either reinforce or remove that assumption. And then we would write it down, and then we'd come back several weeks later and we'd look at the data and we'd see, is attrition going up? Oh, it's not. Like, our assumptions need to be refined in the way that we view this. So that's a micro example. To share one kind of at a larger level, I was working with a sales organization that was in transformation. I was working with the chief sales officer, and he had come in to transform what had been kind of this historic mindset that was like, we're good enough, we're driving sales, to say, no, we're going to be the best sales workforce in the world. And so to do that, we said, in order to build the best sales workforce in the world, we need a team that is consistently learning, continuously learning, innovating, and living our values, one of which was hospitality and now meaning like urgency. So what we did is we set a monthly rhythm where we said, in order to create this culture that we want, we need to create a feedback culture. We need teams to be looking at their metrics, looking at their goals. And in order to do that, we're not going to like stand behind them with a whip and demand that they do this. We're going to create a coaching culture and say, Managers are coaches. Our role in this sales organization is to coach and to make you as sellers the highest performing athlete that you can be. And so then if you think about communication, we created a monthly rhythm where we had a coaching call with all of our leaders where we were practicing coaching. We created in our all hands meeting, everybody wore jerseys. We had jerseys created for every single employee to say, like, we're all athletes. And athletes on the field get coached. They don't just go out there, best players, worst players. You're all getting coached. And so that's an example of where, like, in shifting the culture to become a high-performing sales organization, we said, coaching is the way for us to do that. And here's the communication rhythms that we're going to use in order to reinforce that norm. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. I think this was a question from Manan. So I hope, Manan, you got the answer that you're looking forward for. But I do agree, Theresa, that I have seen that when we talk about values and culture, it is basically the action you take on the ground, what defines it. And communication is a very good way of communicating those actions that you wanted to see on the ground. So thank you very much for that. There is a question that we already spoke about AI,
Yes.
but there's a question that I'm still not able to get my eyes off. So I just still want to ask this question. I think it's a good one. Basically, what it says is that, do you think AI tools is going to take away your independent thought and critical thinking? And very good question, I believe.
There's a great
It's in my mind too. Like, it is making at least me also so lazy that if I have anything, I just depend on AI tool. That sometimes I feel that I don't like to apply my brain and just use them. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. I love this question. I'll use the example of Google Maps or a GPS tool that we all use.
Yeah.
I remember when my GPS first came out that I had this pride in saying that I didn't use my mapping tool to get from point A to point B. Now I use my mapping tool to go across town because I know that it will help me find the lowest traffic route between points A and point B. What is good about that is I'm not thinking constantly about whether I turn left or turn right. And I know that I'm going to get from point A to point B. So the value add of that tool is greater than the cost, which is to my brain thinking about where I'm going. What would be bad about that is if I no longer pay attention to the road, right? If all of a sudden I'm at point B and I'm like, I don't even know how I got here, then I have given over my brain to this tool. And that is risky for everybody on the road, right? And so similarly, a little bit different, but when we think about AI, there are definitely ways that we are outsourcing our brain, right? Like, I can prepare a first draft email immediately, but if I send that first draft email off from ChatGPT, like, one, everybody is going to know that it is ChatGPT. And two, it's going to be so genericized that it's not supporting anyone. And so we do, and I think this is a great question, need to build in disciplines. And I think this goes back to Bharati's question earlier, or comment earlier, about creating these cultural and ethical norms that we need to decide and agree as a community how we're going to use these tools. So, for example, recently we asked all of our leaders in the company to submit examples of, we're trying to reinforce a certain behavior in the organization of healthy conflict. And as we were doing that, we were asking them to share stories of how they've applied healthy conflict in the workplace using these specific tools that we've been using. Well, it became pretty clear pretty quickly that some people went to ChatGPT and said, tell me about, like, put a story together of me with my colleagues dealing with left brain, right brain thinking, and put it into an email that answers these 3 questions. And all of a sudden you see these emails coming through, and it's like a stark difference between those that you can see put time and thought and energy into responding and thinking through the scenario, and those that literally, like, same words across multiple responses, because ChatGPT is just using the best of all their responses and pulling them together into one vanilla case. So I think we do risk this loss of independent thought and critical thinking. I see it. I see that I can go on autopilot very often. Or when I have to think about, gosh, I need to write this email, it's much easier for me to say, like, I have to write this email, ChatGPT, write me a first draft, and then I just respond to that first draft. I don't know yet, and I think this is where we should all be applying our critical thinking. I don't know yet if that is a loss or a gain. Like having ChatGPT write my first draft of an email, as long as I'm going back and I'm refining it, it is much easier to refine and to respond to something than it is to start with a blank slate. And I don't know yet if that's good or bad. So all that to say, we don't want to lose independent thought. We don't want to lose critical thinking skills, but the ways in which they're applied, similar to a GPS, when we started out, I refused to use a GPS except where necessary. And now, why would I not use a GPS?
Yeah, and I think you're very truly said that somewhere I do also see that because it's easier for us to use technology to get our things done. From my conversation, I'm sure you must have got it that I'm a big fan of AI and technology, and I used to use as much time. And from a GPS perspective, when you're speaking about it, I just remember a story that from the old city that I used to stay with. There's a friend that I used to go to his home. I don't know how many times I went to his home, and it's every single time I ask him, send me a Google Map location. And you have come to my location so many times, you can't even remember like where I am. So yeah, and I think at the same time, it's like because we are so dependent on technology, is that we don't have our own opinion that we wanted to put, and we are getting biased with what AI is also telling us.
Yes, that's true.
Very good question. And I think if Theresa gave a very different answer, but if you would have asked me, I would have said, yeah, use artificial intelligence as much as you want to. I don't think. Well, Theresa, thank you very much. We are already 2 minutes up, and it's such a great conversation. And it was like we just started. But I will just make an exception because I will take one last question. Otherwise, Viva will kill me because it is you on the. You are here as a guest. If you would have been anyone else, I would have skipped it. But as you also know Viva well, so Viva's question to you is: do you believe organization culture is more shaped by what leaders reward or by what they tolerate?
This is a great one. I really, my first reaction to this is it's by what they tolerate. Because for me, so much of culture is not what's said in front of the room. So much of culture is what is happening behind closed doors, what's happening in boardrooms, what's happening in the bathroom, what's happening as you're having your team meeting, and what's being said in the space between the official agenda. And so when I think about organizational culture, when leaders tolerate, for example, I think we've probably all seen the book, The No Assholes Rule. Like, great book. I think it's a must read for any culture leader, because it's very common. I've been an HR business partner for nearly my whole career, to have leaders dealing with this tension of, I've got this amazing performer. They literally hit all and exceed all of their targets, but they're the worst person to work with. They don't live our values. They're not somebody that we want on the team, but we can't get rid of them because they're so great. And the problem is that deteriorates the whole culture of the organization. And it's because you're tolerating somebody who doesn't live your values. And so I would say, like, what you tolerate that is out of alignment with what you have said the organization believes and stands for is truly what your culture becomes.
Well, thank you very much, Theresa, with us, and I'm sure Viva must be happy listening from you on this. But before we just we complete our conversation, any message that you want to give to HR leaders, especially those who are in the process of building culture in their organization at this point in time?
Yeah, I would say culture is not a straight line. It is a winding line, and we make mistakes and we learn from them. But culture is, when we reinforce culture well, it is about integrity. It's about integrity, about living and doing what we say we'll do and saying what we'll do. And so for each HR leader, you are that beacon of hope for an organization that we will have integrity. And so keep living with integrity. And it's a hard job because the organization is always winding between living integrity and walking away from integrity. That's the nature of working with humans. And so for each HR leader out there, I would just say, like, keep up the good work. You are the hope of the future in the organization that you're at. And so live your values and live the values of the company.
Awesome. First of all, thank you very much for waking up so early for us and being on this call. And it's so good. As I said, it's a flashback having conversation with you. And also, thank you very much for sharing your unfiltered opinion and the experiences with our audience. I think that's what we needed in this conversation. And I'm sure it is a valuable conversation for all the people who have joined us as an audience in this show. And also apologies for those I couldn't take the questions. So sorry about that, but do join us in the future ones to have those questions, and hopefully we can ask with our speakers on the panel. So with that said, thank you very much, Theresa, for being on the call with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. So this is Theresa Graff with us, who is the CHRO of MDVIP, based out of US, talking to us about why culture defines organization success and taking all the questions from us and sharing her opinion. With that said, we have to close this conversation today. We're going to see you in the next Thursday with another global leaders and talking about another topic on culture. Till then, thank you very much. Have a nice day.